expert. Who's that guy in that orange shirt? Who must be the fence expert? It's almost time to talk about the fences. It's time to discuss operations and expenses. It's time, it's really time to elevate small businesses. It's time for Joe to drop his knowledge. It's relentless. This rhyme of mine is getting a bit ridiculous. So here we go. We're live with Joe. Enjoy the show.
What is up, Fence fam? So good to see you guys again, virtually as it were. We are here for another live Q&A once again. Appreciate you guys joining us. If you guys are tuning in on a podcast, you are listening to a live version or a recorded version of a live conversation that I host most every Saturday from 10 to 11 a.m. Central. If you like what you hear, it's always helpful to leave a positive review. If you'd like to tune in live and be part of the conversation, like I said, most every Saturday, 10 to 11 Central, you can search Joe Everest on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram now. So that's something new. Tune in wherever you like and join the conversation. If you guys are watching live, let us know you're here by saying hello. And also any FenceTech AFA related questions, we'd love to see those in the comments below. First and foremost, before we get started, I got to give a shout out, Expert Stain and Seal. I appreciate you guys sponsoring these lives. Guys, they're a sponsor because I liked using them. We've used them longer than they've been a sponsor. Really good people, really great family. You guys can't go wrong with Expert Professional Wood Care products. Huge shout out to Caleb Ashley and the whole Expert team. Without further ado, if you read the description, you know who today's guest is, the one and only Michael Reed. Michael, how are you?
Hey, good morning. How are you?
I feel like we just saw each other, but not a few days ago.
It was nice to spend some time with you there, and it's nice to be here today to talk about FenceTech.
As always, I appreciate you making time available on a Saturday. I mean, anytime I ask, the answer is always yes. So I absolutely appreciate that.
Well, likewise. Thank you.
Let's say hello to a few people. Well, first and foremost, if you guys are watching this on Facebook, apparently StreamYard has redone all of their permissions. So you need to click on this StreamYard.com/Facebook to give permission for them to use your username. So it doesn't just say Facebook user, such as this Facebook user. It says, good morning. Good morning, Facebook user. Say hello to a few more people. Roger was the first one in the chat. Hello, Joe and Fence fam. Nice to meet you, Michael.
Good morning, Roger.
There you go. Hello, Roger. Welcome back. I say welcome back. Good to see you back.
Every time I lurk in on the show, Roger's here. So
He is too. I'll have to go back and look, but I think he's probably one of the longest, like, regular commenters in the show. He's got to be.
I would think so, because I occasionally miss because of other obligations, but I always see Roger's comments come in. So.
Absolutely. Glad to have you here, Roger. Front Rock Fences says, hi, Joe. I had a dream I drowned in an ocean of orange soda. It was a fantasy. I love that. Nice. Hey, Front Rock Fences, two oranges were having a conversation, but they couldn't make out what the other was saying because one was Mandarin. You see. Stevie Boy Billings, what is up from across the pond? Good afternoon, Joe and the Fence fam. Good afternoon, Stevie. We already said hello to this Facebook user. Also, a reminder, do the Facebook check-in thing. Jeremy, hello. Hi, Fence fam. Hello, Jeremy. Jeremy, did you get connected with the women's group? Let me know. I know we had talked about that before. So Jeremy is a fence contractor in, Texas for sure. I want to say the Dallas area. So we'd love to see you get connected. We also know this gentleman, Clint Iams. Hello, Clint. Merry early Christmas, gents.
Hey, Clint.
Merry Christmas. For sure. Michael, we got a big event coming up. I say I'm going. You're in full organizer mode right now, I'm sure.
We are. The team, it's nice that I get to come here and talk about FenceTech, but there is a group of people behind that team that is just an amazing group of logistics people and sponsorship support people and education support. I mean, the putting on an event of this size at the level that we do is certainly not because I get to do the fun stuff and talk about it, but the heavy lifting is done by an incredible group of people of both staff and volunteers who work together to put on this show for the industry. And it's an amazing thing, but it's me being here is at the very tippy top of the iceberg. There's a whole group of volunteers and staff who work together to make this an amazing event.
Yeah, I think that was one of my one of the things that I had found surprising once I got involved with AFA and started just, I don't know, peeking behind the curtain may not be the right, but kind of seeing the behind the scenes was just
Sure.
It really does take a village. Like, it takes
Yes.
a tremendous amount of people to put an event of this size on.
Well, it's almost like that whole concentric circle thing. So there's a small group of staff and volunteers who are kind of driving the train forward, and then there's a whole separate group of people, the sponsors and the other volunteers who are involved and the people who just get involved for that event. And then there's a wider concentric groups of people that are in chapters, or they're loosely affiliated with AFA or loosely involved in the industry, but they're part of the FenceTech event. And then there's the largest part of the circle, which is all the people who attend, all the people who families are impacted by this event. I mean, the one thing that's amazing about this event is that, yes, it takes place one time a year and we all gather together for this, but the impact that it has on even a convention city like Nashville, we will have a huge impact on that city, on the families that are impacted by that city. So that's kind of the widest part, and it's our community uplifting that Nashville community and coming together to kind of rejoice in one another and help each other be successful. It really is one of the main reasons that I love being part of the fence industry.
Absolutely. I mean, it's going to be, and what a great place for it. Nashville, Tennessee. I mean, it feels like just a really good blue collar destination for a lot of guys to come together. I mean, obviously talk shop, right? Learn a little bit more about fence, get better professionally, but also network with each other. I think a lot of folks look forward to this. Is just the kind of reconnection with the fence family in person that they've maybe talked to throughout the year on social media, but basically like a personal reconnection almost.
Yeah, I think one of the things that makes FenceTech so incredibly relevant in today's fence industry is that there is so much innovation that's happening, and the innovation is not just on the product side. There's a ton of innovation on the product side,
sure.
But there's also innovation happening in terms of how people install things, and there's innovation that's happening in people's businesses. And I think when people are kind of calculating out that return on investment, because it's an investment to come to FenceTech, but when people are calculating that out, for some people it's very easy because they're getting that connection that you just mentioned, that they know, they look forward to that connection each time. Other people have to kind of go through a calculation in their head on what's the return on investment.
Sure.
And I think one of the things that is kind of proving itself out in the industry today is that the suppliers, the manufacturers, and the folks who wholesale products are innovating so fast and changing the way we do things in the industry that FenceTech almost becomes you can't miss, because where else are you going to see all that innovation?
Well, and then I think that's worth touching on for a minute, just sitting right there in that, because so when my dad owned our business and he was a member of the AFA, he was in the camp of he would go every other year or every 2 or 3 years and say, well, if I see it this year, I'm good for another year or two, and then I'll go back and see what's new. I think as technology advances, I think the speed of innovation also advances.
Correct.
Right. We see iterations faster and faster. Now with social media, we get a glimpse into those, right? And YouTube and such, we get a glimpse into some of those innovations. But this is a time that we can actually put our hands on things, that we can actually ask one-on-one questions. We can meet in person, some sales reps that we've had conversations with throughout the year. The in-person aspect of it, I think, cannot be ignored when we're talking about the ROI. And also, so there were a few things there last year in OKC, some items I had never seen before, right? And when I researched them afterwards, they're all over, they're on social media. They've obviously got a web presence, but they just weren't in my algorithm, right? It just didn't show those to me. So they were available. I still didn't even have anything. I didn't have any idea they existed until we were there in person shooting some videos. And I thought, oh, well, this is incredibly interesting. What does this thing do?
So Joe, that's one dynamic, that idea that I can see something that I didn't even know existed. But there's a whole other dynamic that since 1962 AFA has been doing, and that's the problem solving thing. So you have problems in your business, we have problems in our business. Everybody's got challenges in their business that they're trying to solve. And so one of the things when I'm talking to people, whether they're suppliers who want greater voice of the customer input, or if they're contractors who want greater, they want to improve something in their business, I'm like, come to FenceTech with the 4 or 5 most challenging business problems you have. And if you want to calculate return on investment, write down your 3 to 5 biggest challenges. And I would be shocked if not all 5 of those you had, maybe not the full solution, but you had, if something was confounding you, you are going to have a conversation, or you are going to see a product or a service that will allow you to address that problem. And then you get everything else that's part of FenceTech. You get the nightlife in Nashville and the connection in the bars and events after kind of the show floor. So you've got to really take the whole experience. And if you, as a business owner, regardless of the side of the industry that you work in, whether it's supplier side or the contractor side, if you can't walk away with solutions to your problems, come see me, and I'll show you how to do it, because I would be shocked if you can't solve your own problems as a result of FenceTech.
I absolutely agree, because if you've never been to FenceTech, it's hard to explain what it is, but it's a group of industry peers and professionals from all over the country. And you end up seeing like little pockets, little knots of professionals just talking through, like you said, some issues that they're having, or, and that's one of the things we've talked about a lot, at these events and after these events, is that there's almost an equal measure of value in the event itself, but also in the networking opportunities after hours, off-site, that sort of thing, which is where a lot of these conversations you're talking about occur of, hey, what are you guys doing about this? And then that could spark a whole conversation of, well, I did it this way. Well, you do it that way. And maybe we can combine 2 or 3 of these methods into some sort of solution that applies in your neck of the woods. It's funny because, you hear sometimes, or probably more often than not, this, well, whatever we're talking about, that wouldn't work in my area because my area is so different. Like
my business is so special. My business is so unique. My area is so unique.
Yeah. I tell you what. So walk the floor of FenceTech and say something like, "You guys have it good because I've got rock in my backyard." And watch this is like 50 guys show up, be like, "Oh yeah, you think you've got rock? I've got this. Oh, I wish I had rock because I've got sand." Or there
is a little bit, especially the later it gets in the evening, there is a little competition on who's got the bigger problems. My staff is this. Oh, you think you've got staffing problems? My staff is this. But coming out of all of that is again, if you loop back around to this idea that this helps you as a business owner, as a leader in the industry, this helps you solve problems. That return on investment is made pretty darn quick if you sleep better at night after, or if you are able to elevate your business.
Yeah, well, and if
to scale your business up as a result of that investment.
Absolutely. Well, and just if your network grows, right? Your network of folks that you can reach out to say, some of my closest industry peers I've met at fencing events, right? Where we're talking through these problems. They're like, wait a minute. So you have a similar situation to mine. We should really stay in touch so that if I find an innovation or if you find an innovation, we can kind of swap notes.
Well, I noticed that in Fence News USA, Mark Levin wrote an article in there from CLFMI. Mark Levin from CLFMI wrote an article that basically made that exact point, is sometimes you don't get an immediate payoff. You may get an answer to a problem, but sometimes it's the fact that you've known somebody over a period of time, or that relationship is fostered, or that changes in the relationship because of the changes in the environment then lead you all to then create a new solution. And his point is, you just can't miss this event because it happens at a scale like no other.
Absolutely.
One thing I will say about you said that people will come around, people from around the nation will come in, and I will that's true. And then I'm going to add an "and" to it.
Yeah.
As the speed of change just engulfs our industry, and just like other industries in the construction trade, we're starting to look at things much more globally. And so even though we are the American Fence Association, I think that as we look at FenceTech and some of the offerings as our businesses consolidate and become more global, and supply chains become more global, which we saw, 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. That's also where you can think of, if you've got a fence company in the middle of Texas or in the middle of Oklahoma, and you're starting to, middle of Missouri, and you're starting to think about, well, how will I scale my business? You now have the opportunity to create a network, a global network, that can help you achieve your goals. And that's, I think, one of the innovations that will continue to develop in our industry, not just at FenceTech, or not just for you personally as a business owner, but for all of us in the industry is that we'll now, because of the way our industry is structured and the businesses in the industry are structured, we're going to be seeing ourselves much more globally than we have been in the past.
Absolutely. And I'll give a good example. So we were at FenceTech New Orleans. It was towards the end of the day of one of the show floor days. And I was chatting with Matt Warner. We were over in his booth and just kind of cutting up with some of the we were just having a conversation with some of the industry professionals, and another gentleman had walked up, introduced himself, and we started a conversation. We'll come to find out he's a vendor from Canada, and Matt knew him previously, and he and I introduced ourselves and all that. Well, that was 2 years ago. This year, I had reached out to him because we were wanting to carry an additional product line that I knew he carried because we had met each other just in a really informal way at this circle of professionals chatting about fence. It's relationships like that. And so talking about global logistics has kind of made me think about that in that, so it's not only United States. American Fence Association can mean the entire North Americas, which will also include our brothers to the north and south.
Absolutely. And one of the other great examples of this is if you look at what happens in the ag part of our business, they take knowledge and information from New Zealand and from the UK. And so we because of it's not just products that cross borders, it's also knowledge and information. And so there's lots of examples, and there will be lots more as folks try to create a competitive advantage for their own business, a unique selling proposition for their own businesses. They're going to leverage the relationship they have, and ultimately, even though that we're coming in we're kind of like to talk about the kumbaya parts of going to FenceTech. At the end of the day, we're in an industry. We're in a competitive industry, and while we may be friendly competitors, we are still competitors. And to miss out on an opportunity like this would be detrimental to somebody's business.
Yeah. Well, we've got a pretty large competitor here in our market that he and I were talking last year. Actually, it was right after FenceTech and OKC. We had a home show that we were setting up for, and we were just kind of chatting about life. And he goes, "Man, I always see," he goes, "you go to all these events every year?" I was like, "Absolutely. Like I wouldn't miss one." Yeah. And he was one of these guys where he said, I just don't understand it. Like, what do you do every time? And you see the same people, you see the same vendors, what are you doing? I'm like, well, here's the thing. One, I go to be present, right? To take advantage of whatever opportunity, whether it be a personal relationship, getting started, or whether it's furthering a relationship with a vendor or just whatever. Being present, just being in the room gives you access to all of this. And when you're not there, you miss out, but he's one of these guys. And I mean, no fault to him, but how he was raised, I'm sure, he said, I went once and I just didn't get anything out of it. He walked the show floor for a day and a half and just kind of window shopped a lot of vendors and then took a lot of pamphlets home and he said, I just didn't get much out of it. Like, well, let's think about this in 180 degree perspective. How much did you put into it?
Yeah.
How much time did you spend getting to know new vendors? Or again, like I said, strengthening relationships. That's the thing I try to get across. Like, we are in a relationships industry. Whether we're talking about relationships with our customers and clients, we're talking about relationships with our team, whether we're talking about relationships with our vendors, relationships are everything. And the more you can do to strengthen those, the stronger you find your business.
Absolutely. So, well, what we can do, I don't know, maybe you were trying to segue me into it, but let's dig into some of the ways that some of the different ways.
Sure.
And we talked broadly at kind of the high level about the event itself, but you want to talk about some of the ways people could increase some of the very specific ways people could find value in the event?
Yeah, I think the first place here. So Julie had the comment. Education at FenceTech looks fantastic this coming year. I say the first. Let's start there because education actually starts in the beginning of the FenceTech, right? So before show floor, before all that, education begins.
So folks should know, just at a very high. If sometimes it's helpful if everyone understands kind of the model or the way that we structured it, and then you can see how the meat's put on the bones. So first of all, our education session, our meetings team and our education team come together to create that content, and we use experts from the industry. So it's not they're setting the table, and then they're inviting the experts to come participate. And we did a couple of different things this year. So the first thing we did is we did some pre-conference workshops. And so we'll have pre-conference workshops with Sean King, with Tony Thornton, and we'll run Gate Operation Design School kind of in a pre-conference way. So that'll start on Monday and Tuesday, and then education starts on Tuesday and goes through Wednesday. And there's 3 tracks or 4 tracks. There's a leadership track, an installation track, business schools track, and then a sales track. So that's how the education gets organized. And so the way we tried to make the conference much more consumable. So if you have very specific needs in terms of scaling your business or in terms of learning how to design safe gates, that happens early in the week, and then you can still participate in those 4 tracks: the business track, the sales track, the install track, or the leadership track. And that'll appeal to various parts. I'm sorry.
No,
that'll appeal to various parts in your business.
Yeah, and one thing to mention is now the tracks, educational tracks, was it last year was the first year that we kind of introduced tracks, or was it the year before? It was right in.
Well, we probably we've always tried to put things in the categories to make them easier. I think the charge that I gave the team this year was make it very, very explicit of this particular content fits in this particular track.
Absolutely. The point I want to make sure everyone understands is you can absolutely switch tracks midstream.
Absolutely.
Right. You can pick a little bit from the sales, a little bit from the marketing, a little bit from the leadership, and kind of meld those into kind of your own educational experience.
Yeah, I think what we wanted to do though is if we wanted to be able, if you're going down a buffet line, to know where the meat and fish were, where the vegetables were, where the starches were, so that as you walked through, you were able to pick and choose exactly what you wanted. Yeah. And I think that in this case, especially if we're talking about, we are definitely taking a more sales-oriented approach to some of this education, some of the content we're producing to help people be better at sales. And so if you are looking at a sales leadership position, you might take a bunch of classes out of the sales course and then take a drop into the leadership course. Or if you're a brand new estimator, you just may stake all in the sales course. Or if you're a technician, you may pull a bunch of stuff out of the technician. But you're investing in people to go to FenceTech. Right. Everybody should be participating in those business scaling and leadership courses, at least one of them that appeals to them.
I think that's a good point, in that if you are bringing a team, each member of your team will have an emphasis somewhere, right? Yep. So say, hey, your emphasis will be in the sales track. Now, it's not saying you can't go outside of it, but let's start here and then venture into leadership or technician. Right. I like, so when the announcement started coming out and kind of who was speaking where and which track, I was like, I really enjoy the organization of it, just to say, okay, so if I want to emphasize this team member in this role, I'll run them down this track. And I appreciate the organization, I guess is what I'm saying.
Well, and that, again, I'll say thank you, but that's a real credit to Nick Reich and a whole series. I mean, really, literally, dozens of volunteers and our meetings planning team who has kind of worked really hard to prepare that, to set that table for people to be able to find what they want and get the value they need from education.
Absolutely. Well, and running at the same time with education is also, there's going to be a few, you talked about gate operator, was it go as gate operator?
The design school.
Yeah. So, but you're having some certifications run at the same time as education, kind of concurrently.
Yeah. So you can test.
Mm-hmm.
They're the only true certification program that we're running at FenceTech start to finish is that design program. The other ones are a little bit longer, but
sure.
If you are looking at attending the Leadership Academy, that's a day and a half long, a very specific leadership training for up and coming leaders in your organization. Of course, you've got business strategies that you can look at with both Sean and Tony. And that design school is that day and a half long school to learn how to design safe gates.
Absolutely.
And so, there's also testing opportunities. So a lot of times people think that you have to take a piece of education and then test for that. And that's not how our certifications are set up. You can test for those certifications at any time. And so at FenceTech, when you're registering, if you've gone through education in the past and you need to take the certification exam, that opportunity will exist at FenceTech as well.
Okay. Very good. And of course, outside of this conversation is mostly about FenceTech, but also we've got Fencing University coming next year, later on next year, to where if you do have the education now, you can also take your certification tests later on in the year as well. Absolutely. So we've got the education tracks, guys. If you want to find out more information, we've got the link here to where you can jump over on the AFA's website to check out the educational sessions and series that are going on there. Let's back up just a little bit. Williams Fence has a question. When is FenceTech?
So it's January 22nd through the 26th.
It's about 5 weeks. It is going to be upon us in a hurry. It is going to be right around the corner.
Yeah, and I would just tell people that our industry has a tendency to do things last minute.
Yes.
This is one of those things where I would suggest that people jump on stuff now, and there's one simple reason. From a housing perspective, yes, there are tons more options in Nashville than there are previously, but we bring a ton of people to the city. Yep. And so we will have a ton of people who drive into this, and I don't think they should expect to find hotel rooms late in the game. I would encourage people to register now, to get your housing taken care of, and know before you go and kind of slow down for the holidays. Don't put this off, and mostly because you want to get that housing taken care of. Yeah.
You want to make sure you got a place to stay.
You want to make sure you got a place to stay.
And I think that's important to what you had said. Do it now before the holidays, because if your holidays are like mine, you'll blink and all of a sudden it'll be the second week in January, and you're saying, wait a minute, we're 2 weeks out from this?
Yeah, exactly. And that was one of the points that Mark made in his article earlier, is that people get into a cadence to have us to be able to come back from the holidays and then still have plenty of time to register. But because of the way the timing worked out this year for Nashville, we're actually in late January. And so, Joe, you're absolutely right. You should do this I'm going to plant it in folks' minds. You should do this before you slow down for the holidays, because when you get back, you'll be jumping back into business, and then this will be one more stressful thing that you'll have to worry about to get your team registered for FenceTech.
Yeah, you're going to be trying to catch up from the holidays, because everyone takes some amount of time off for the holidays.
Right.
So you're trying to catch up. And like you said, you might end up having to stay outside the city, because the hotels, there are a lot of hotels there in the area. But to your point, I mean, there's going to be a lot of attendees. There's going to be a lot of vendors who are all bringing teams of team members that all have to stay somewhere.
Joe, I can't impress upon you enough. So one of the things that's happening more and more is that these our major sponsors for the program are bringing in their entire team. So you have companies that are out there on the supplier side that are bringing 70, or that 70 is the largest number that I've heard, but I've heard several folks mentioning 30s and 40s of their they're bringing all their business development people in, or they're bringing all of their executives in, and there's a reason for that, because they're getting great value of those individuals hearing the voice of the customer on the show floor.
Yeah.
But you're right, they are taking up a ton of space. And so I do know that one hotel is generally almost fully sold out. And so you can still get in and still register, but I wouldn't wait until January to do that. I'd encourage people to do it now.
Yeah, doing it now would be the proactive approach for sure.
And it would be
probably
less
lead to the
stressful.
best experience.
It'd be less stressful for you at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So it's in Nashville this year. Great location. It's a block off of the main strip. They're off of Broadway. It is going to be right in the heart of Nashville, right in the middle of everything.
It is. And so we've been talking a lot about the business reasons and the return on investment. And so let's just talk a little bit about how much fun this is going to be. So you kind of, at the top of the show, you kind of said, like, this couldn't be a better location in terms of the personality of our industry. And I think that's largely right. But I also think we bring the party no matter where we go.
Oh yeah.
But I will say that we've incorporated a lot of fun. So instead of a keynote speaker this year, we've got a group of musicians, of famous singer-songwriters, who will talk about, and everybody's kind of familiar now with the business behind the scenes of music. And so these folks are going to sing some award-winning songs, and then in between those songs, they're going to riff on what their business experiences will look with, like what's similar in the fence industry to their business, their music businesses, and how the challenges they had in their businesses and are similar to, the challenges our owners, whether they're on the supplier side or the contractor side, have. And so that's going to be really fun. And then when we have this opening party, pickets and picks, that's going to be dynamic. And so we'll have you and the fellow podcasters in the AFA booth talking about what's happening. And one of the things that I'm hoping that you'll continue to focus on is how much fun that we're having during that event. So
absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we were just at Tony Thornton's Fence Business Conference, and that was the topic of conversation that kept coming up, was that how much everyone was looking forward to coming to Nashville and just, I mean, getting a lot of value, but also having a lot of fun. Nashville is just an incredible place to host one of these events at.
Well, so when I was hired a year and a half ago, one of the underlying themes of my whole entire interview process was we're always so serious about the business of fence gate and perimeter security. We're always so serious. We're always so serious. Help make us fun again. And I'm like, guys, you are fun. It's just that you are responsible for the business of the industry. So so when we talk about getting together and those interpersonal connections with folks that you have, we call it networking, that those interpersonal connections, that's fun, but we're also introducing a lot of fun in terms of the pickets and picks party, the keynote speaker, the special interest groups, SIP and seminar. So there's a lot of things that are built into the agenda, the business, to make sure people have a really good time connecting with their other industry leaders.
Absolutely. Well, and I like that there's that room that's available for that, right? So there is structured learning, there's educational series, there is the networking, there is the, show floor of just relationship building, but there's also room and there's also time available for the after hours, hang out with your friends and have a good time. Again, build relationships with your peers, right? Now, I will say this, little unsure on how many people are going to show up early in the mornings for some of these events. Maybe for the beginning of the show floor, it is a block off Broadway. So
we did accommodate that. So we set good expectations and we adjusted it. I think people will be fine. I think when your company is invested in you as an attendee to go, or if you're working that show, you're gonna you're going to drag out of there. There'll be lots of coffee around.
Absolutely.
There'll be a little bit of hair dog that bits you.
Sure.
I mean, this is going to be one of those times. And so when you're new in a role, like I was with the executive director role, people like to talk about things. And Nashville previously, people still talk about when the event. So we're creating an activity that people are going to talk about for decades. So
let's talk a little bit about the opening party, the Pickets and Picks, because this is, I mean, we saw this at first last year at OKC, the opening party. I thought went incredibly well, and it sounds like this year has taken that as a foundation and built on it. Can you talk a little bit about what to expect at the opening party?
Sure. So Robert and Chance, who organized that event in Oklahoma City, we got connected with them soon after, early last year after Oklahoma City, and NFA has always had a decent opening party. And then the last 2 years, we had gotten away from hosting them. And I felt like, and others, it wasn't just me, but we felt like it would be a tragedy to have, this kind of dynamic duo creating this opening party and then trying to reinstitute that because in Nashville. And so the idea was, hey, let's get these guys involved.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I will tell you, getting them involved has gone far beyond just the Pickets and Picks. Pickets and Picks is going to be dynamic. We're dotting the I's and crossing the T's on talent contract. It's going to blow folks away. We've got special events that are happening as part of that event, so it will be like an outdoor festival like atmosphere. When people show up, there's going to be a cornhole tournament. There's going to be a wall of guitars people can bid on. There's going to be all sorts of cool stuff that it makes it feel like it's going to feel like an outdoor festival, music festival, including Elijah Steiner, one of our own industry members, kind of setting up the headliner, opening up for the headliner. And it's the whole thing, Joe, is just going to be one of those things I think gets built into the lore of, hey, did you go to FenceTech? Did you go to that opening party? It's going to be awesome.
Absolutely. I am absolutely looking forward to it. Like I said, last year's those guys did a incredible job, and they had a pretty short runway to pull that off. It kind of got put together in the last few months before the event. So now I can't imagine if they've had a year plus or minus to really put this thing into effect. Man, I tell you what, I think it's going to be something that no one's going to want to miss.
So the venue, by the way, the venue that we're using is the same venue that's used for the CMA Awards.
Okay.
And so, it's just going to be done in a way that is just kind of first class, but so relaxed, and good food, good music, fun, good people. Don't miss it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not. We've talked about this in depth. We are making plans to attend for sure. Because it gets into that fellowship
go ahead.
No, it gets into the relationship building, right? It starts it off at the beginning of the week. It sets the tone for the rest of the event.
So it does set the tone for the rest of the event. And the goal is, remember, there's thousands of people that come to this. And so if you're able to connect with a couple dozen at this party, as you walk through the show floor, whether they're suppliers, whether they're working in a booth, it's so much easier if that you've had the chance to break bread that was one of the main things that Chance and Robert wanted to do with that opening party in Oklahoma City, was to give a chance of people to break bread and have drink, so that they had a head start on the show floor. And we're carrying that same kind of attitude. It's just a great opportunity if you've thrown a couple games of cornhole with somebody. It's a whole lot easier to start talking to them once you see them on the show floor about stuff.
Yep, it's a great icebreaker. Absolutely. Let's talk about a little bit about the show floor. where guys. So we've talked about the educational series. We've talked about the opening show or the opening event. Let's talk a little bit about the show floor. What can folks expect to see when they walk in the doors of FenceTech show floor?
So literally what they'll see when they walk in the doors of FenceTech is that it'll be the park. And then, so it'll be indoor, outdoor. So it'll look like an outdoor space. There's lots of room so people can spread out. There will be a ton of people. So we needed to create that atmosphere of largeness. Come see us in the AFA booth. It'll be right there in that park area. The NOMA booth will also be right in that area as well. So the attendees will be able to walk in and filter through their organizations. And then it's just surrounded by innovation and surrounded by people who are trying to help you grow your businesses. And you'll have that show floor, in my opinion. If I came out of the training side of association business, and I think about, yes, the classes that people go to, but the other part, the practical part of learning, is when you're walking that show floor. And it's going back to that, what we talked about earlier about solving problems.
Sure.
I've got some problems that I need solved. Who are the experts in this room that can help me solve them?
Yeah.
And then you get that dynamic that we talked about earlier of, here's something new I've never seen before. I had no idea about this. And here's a solution to my problems that I can get solved. That all happens on the show floor.
Well, absolutely. And introductions, right? So I guess this was in New Orleans also. I was talking to a vendor just about just a difficulty we were having sourcing something, and that they didn't carry, but I was just kind of venting to them. They said, you know what? Let me walk over to these folks with you. Do you know them? I can make this introduction, and then I think they could probably help you along with this. And now, is that a booth I could have walked into and had that conversation? 100%. But it was much more comfortable to go with someone that I knew and have the introduction kind of be made. And then that turned into be a very successful relationship for us as well.
Yeah, I think it goes back to kind of the overall purpose of AFA, which is to solve problems and do it in a way it's together. I think that when you have the ability to have that experience, what you just described, I'm telling you, if the person that you're talking to can't solve your problem, and then the network that the two of you have together can't think through, well, who would be the best person to give me advice on this? I think that's what people need to understand when these people set up booth space and they're exhibiting. They love this industry and they are trying to help that attendee grow their business. And that's ultimately what they're here for. They're here because they love the attendee, they love the contractors who are coming, and they want you to be successful. Of course they do, because they want to sell you more product.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, those aren't mutually exclusive. They can love you and want to sell you more product along the same lines.
Sure.
They want you as the attendee to be able to solve more problems, to sell more, and to solve more problems for your customers. And that's what ultimately, that's how that value chain works, is that they're exhibiting, they're going to help you solve problems so that then you can solve problems for your customer.
Absolutely. Well, and a lot of it is, listen, we're all in the same industry, right? We all want to see the industry succeed. So part of this is, if I help you succeed and you help someone else succeed, then they help me succeed. Like, this is all one big industry, right?
Yeah.
So helping other people that don't directly impact you still does impact you. It just may be a little bit down the line.
Absolutely. So we, I always have fancy ways of saying stuff often,
Sure.
but these are mutually supporting activities. And so it's this concept of, I may help you solve a problem today, and you're going to remember that I help you solve that problem. And when then I have the problem that directly relates to what you can do for me, who am I going to call?
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
It's the same reason why when you're building fence out for a customer, you'll go knock on the doors of the houses around you and say, hey, we're building this great fence for your neighbor, or we're putting this fence around this this building, this commercial building down the road, we'd be happy to do that for you.
Sure.
It's the same exact concept. We want you, as AFA, and then by extension, the people who exhibit, they want you to be successful.
Absolutely. Well, because again, it makes the industry stronger, and it's a better industry for us all to work in.
Absolutely.
This conversation is going on a lot in general about professionalism, right?
Yep.
So there were several conversations about this at Tony's event, in that, we need to do our best to try to raise the professionalism, right, into being a kind of recognized professional trade, similar to, whomever, plumbers, electricians, roofers, whatever. And one of those ways is by helping each other succeed, right? Being there for each other.
Yeah, and a lot of those topics that are happening in the industry right now are focused on this idea of gate safety.
Right. Absolutely.
This is gate safety has been a topic of conversation in this industry for over 20 years. When the industry came together, when AFA and NOMA and CLFMI and IDA came together to create a new standard for automated gate safety, to educate people on what UL 325 meant to the industry in terms of automated gate safety. Like, this gate safety movement started many years ago, and now it's been reinvigorated and kind of this new. It's kind of an evolution. The example that I like to use is, for years and years and years, people didn't use seatbelts, and when seatbelts became law, or seatbelts became part of the way the car industry promoted safety, people were like, "I'm not using a seatbelt. Seatbelts." And then more and more people started using seatbelts. And then there was a lot of innovation. And then now we have airbags, and now we have multiple airbags, and now we have even more anti-braking. And so the way that the car industry and safety in the car industry evolved is kind of what we're seeing in our industry now with regard to safety of our products. And we're seeing a lot of innovation happening on how to create integrated fallover posts, or how to create chains that are automatic, that are part of the installation best practices, and to prevent fallover on swing gates. So when we start talking about raising awareness or educating people on how to create safer products, that's also part of what we're talking about here, about professionalism and being part of something like FenceTech. Is it helps elevate you and your business, especially around a particular topic. And in this case, in Oklahoma City, we raised the Quanbeck story and told the Quanbeck story, and Eric Quanbeck was there talking about his son Alex, who was killed by a falling gate. And tragically, we had that same thing happen this November with a little girl in Arizona. And so our people, the awareness is there, and now people are saying, educate me, help me educate my people, help me be more professional when I'm talking to customers about this issue. And that's where the industry is, and it's coming from all over. It's coming from AFA, it's coming from Fence Workers Association, it's coming from consultants in the industry. It is coming from everywhere. And guess what? Here we are solving more problems for the industry. And it's a beautiful thing, born out of tragedy, but it's a beautiful thing to see our industry come together to address this issue.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's always been a topic of conversation, right? Gate safety has always been something since I was a kid that was talked about. So it's not like this is an entirely new movement, right? This is an entirely new thought, but really how I view it is kind of like restoking those flames, right?
Absolutely.
They've been kind of smoldering. The embers have been there, but now we're restoking it to bring the conversation back to the forefront and hopefully enact real change as soon as possible.
So if you think about the adoption of specifically around automated gates. So the standard for that is F2200. When I'm talking to people about, you're talking about stoking the fires, the analogy that I use, it's like a baton handoff in a relay race.
Okay. Yeah.
So these folks from the past 20 years, both on the contractor, the installer side, and on the manufacturer side, have been pounding it. Gate safety, automated gate safety, automated gate safety. Well, this last year, with ASTM updating the F1184 standard, a lot of those safety elements moved from the automated gate side into the rolling gate side, into the manual gate side. And so in my mind, that's a baton handoff. All this,
Sure.
If you talk to your dad about gate safety and he's going to go, man, we're still talking about this? No, it's an evolution. We're now talking about the difference between seat belts and the addition of airbags.
Right.
We're now talking about the way things happen differently. And I'm very proud, I have to say, I'm very proud of the way the majority of our industry is looking at this, saying we need to raise awareness. We need to educate people. We need professional certifications that denote expertise in this area. We need to engage the code officials on this who are trying to enact safety in their communities. We need to talk about licensing. So I'm proud of the way the industry is accepting this multi-pronged approach to gate safety. It's amazing.
Well, I mean, as part of Tony's Fence Business Conference, he dedicated a portion, a whole afternoon, to the Gate Safety Summit, where the industry came together. Right? Yep. It wasn't one organization; it was multiple organizations. Right? Yep. It was folks from all over the country that came together in the room. I think there was like 85 or 90 folks in the room. And you want to talk about a passionate group of individuals, and here's why. And so there were several very impassioned, just, I don't want to say speeches. They weren't really planned, but from people from the perspective of, listen, I've got kids, right? I've got a 15, a 6, and a 2-year-old. My 6-year-old will climb anything possible, right? Mm-hmm. So you had better believe when I came home, we had a conversation about gate safety. We're like, listen, you don't close gates you don't know. You don't climb on gates. You don't, all this sort of stuff. But we heard a lot of impassioned individuals that came from that perspective. Like, listen, we are all parents, or the majority of us here are parents, or will become parents, or have been parents. We can put ourselves in this, position of knowing, or at least thinking we know what that family would go through that had, any sort. And obviously, fatalities are awful. Right. If we could wave a magic wand today and make it go away, I think you'd see a whole room full of checkbooks get opened. Like, let's end this today. What's the cost? Let's pool our resources and get this done. So, but also part of the conversation that maybe wasn't talked about as much, but has, in a significant impact as well, is maiming. Right. So the kids or adults, I mean, we're focusing on kids because that's been in the news, or adults that are, listen, some of these gates, a large cantilever gate or an overhead track gate, while installing, if it were to fall, I mean, that could be a career changing event, right, for an adult.
So Joe, what strikes me, and yes, we are talking about gate safety with children because I think we're reacting to these two very public incidences, the one in San Rafael, California in 2019, and then this one now. So we're reacting to that, but you're absolutely right. When we look at gate safety, it's not just kids that are getting hurt or killed. It's also employees who are closing a gate and having that gate come off its track or come out of its supporting mechanisms, and those are just as tragic in mine. It's just that those aren't making the news. Those are accidents that are happening on a work site, and people are kind of just bruising by it. But those are, talk about, you're right, career changing accidents.
Yeah.
And here's what strikes me. Here's what strikes me about people talking after. So when we were talking in those, and there were a lot of passionate opinions during that conversation, I was shocked on how many people have a gate story. Well, this happened to me out in the field, or this happened to me when I was on a construction site with a gate, or one of my guys went out to do XYZ and this was the problem.
Yeah.
So how this gets personalized by so many people in the industry, those stories now need to come to light so that people recognize this could happen to me. That's the thing that when you start to raise awareness and you want somebody to take action, you want them to recognize that could happen to me.
Of course.
That could happen to my company.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So,
or my kids. And like you say, it's not during one of these after hours conversations at the event, we had heard from someone who they had a child maimed by a gate.
Yep.
Right. And so that was kind of their point, is like, listen, we're focusing on the fatalities, which is absolutely horrid. Like, if we can alleviate that tomorrow, we should. But also, we're not taking into consideration just how many gates fall, but don't result in a fatality. Kids, adults, and all that. So I think it's good to emphasize that too. Right. Is, listen, we're not just talking about, because here's why I say this. We're talking about big, heavy gates that could absolutely devastate someone if they fell on them. We need to be talking about gates in general, right? So, like, we focus on the greatest threat, absolutely, but don't let it stop there, right? It's also, we've got slide gates out here that may weigh a couple 100 pounds. Is it going to cause catastrophic physical injury? Probably not, but could it maim somebody? Absolutely. If my 6-year-old tried to climb our sliding gate and the top roller was loose or whatever, it could absolutely tip him over. And who knows? Who knows what happens then? So I say that to say we absolutely need to focus on the biggest threats first, but I want to make sure it doesn't end there.
So the doesn't end there is where I'd like to kind of put an exclamation point on this part of our conversation. One of the things that struck me this past week when we were meeting at Tony's event was yes. So here's where we can be helpful as AFA. We have to maintain this. So going back to the relay race, if this started 20 years ago and it was industry and the industry bought into this, now we have to reinvigorate the entire industry. And it doesn't matter who creates an initiative to educate people or who does it doesn't matter. It's all of us kind of rowing in the same direction or getting ready to hand off that baton, or hold the baton rather. That's the key. That's the key for now. And then where we can be the most helpful, where AFA frankly can be the most helpful, is having the resources or bringing the resources together, gathering the resources to make this sustainable, to make this a topic of conversation, because this is constantly evolving, and especially now in the social media age, especially now, these things aren't going to happen. Now, when an accident happens, it's going to pop up, and we're going to continue to see these things pop all over where we might not have been aware of them in the past.
Right. Well, absolutely. Absolutely.
So how do we have a sustained movement to eliminate gate fatalities and minimize gate accidents?
Absolutely.
And that's the conversation that's happening now. That actually, tying it back to FenceTech, we'll continue that conversation at FenceTech. We'll have some really good resources available for the industry to use. We're going to be highlighting other initiatives from other organizations around this space. So this isn't about who can out safety someone else. This is about let's come together and create really good messages around gate safety, because there's plenty of audiences. There's schools, there's employers, there's every time we throw up one of these chain link fences around a construction site, let's not forget, that's these temporary gates that are going up for a short period of time. some of them are giant.
Yeah, absolutely. And just as dangerous.
And just as, if not more so, because nobody thinks, oh, this gate's only going to be up for 3 months. You know, the welds are happening quickly, or they're not being maintained properly. That's ultimately what happens, Joe. In my estimation, from trying to understand this, is that they may be installed perfectly at these schools. The gates may be beautifully and safely installed.
Yeah.
If they're not maintained, then they become dangerous. Or if a bus at a school, if a bus hits a gate, and the facilities people say, it's a chain link gate, I can fix it. Oh, it's a gate. I'll bring out my welding kit and I'll fix it. They need to call one of you guys, somebody who's an expert in gates, to give them an opinion on what it is to make that gate safe. Yeah,
and so this is. I'm going to give one example how I think we're going to help address this, and everyone can obviously create their own examples. But when we were talking about school, I mean that's the most recent where I was at a school. So let's talk about school and thinking about. So Springfield, Missouri, is the largest public school district in the state of Missouri, and it's in our backyard. So we have a great opportunity here. Now, here's the thing with schools, though. At least this school. Like they have 40, 50 maintenance, building and grounds folks. They're not hiring us to come deal with gates. They have a team, right? Okay, so how do we get this message to that team? I think for us, it's going to be, twice a year lunch and learns. Invite those guys over and gals over. Let's feed you. Let's show you practical application. We've got gates here. We could show you here. This is what fallover protection looks like. This is what I'm inspecting when I look at these gates. This is what you can see. Also, here, here's our phone number. Take a picture of this. If you see a gate, in your example, if you have an incident with a gate, a bus hits it, a car hits it, whatever, call me. I will come out. I will inspect it. There will not be a consultation charge. I'll tell you how I would fix it. I'll give you my recommendation because I want these gates safe, right? Ultimately, we want safe gates. Because, to bring this back around to professionalism, that's something a professional industry would do, right? Is to look out for the industry, look out for the people that are affected by the industry. I'm starting to hear stories like that in all over the country where people have reached out to their school districts. They were so moved by the Quanbeck story or this little girl in Arizona. They're so moved by that and they want to take action. One of the things that's so powerful about our industry is our commitment to communities. And this just isn't on the contractor side. This is on the supplier side too. We are invested in our people and we are invested in our communities. And to hear stories like you just relayed there, that's going to be how we make a difference, and we keep the juice that's how we power this momentum. That's how we power this momentum is 1,000 little activities like that all over the country. Absolutely.
With people reaching out. And sometimes it's going to be schools, other times it's going to be parks, other times it's going to be, and those are all different opportunities. And Joe, I commend you for your activity and others too. I mean, you and I are talking now, but those folks out there in their local communities who are committed to doing something here are really demonstrating that professionalism we were talking about.
Yeah, schools and parks and recreation are the low-hanging fruit here.
They are.
I mean, look at any
churches, schools, and parks.
There you go. That's right. I hadn't even thought about churches, but you're absolutely right.
That's the low-hanging fruit. Churches, schools, and parks. It's where people are congregating, where they're driving to. Because I'm telling you, it's the repeated use and the lack of maintenance that I'm hearing is the consistent themes.
Yes.
So if you install a stop, and that stop is installed correctly in 2023 or 2024 when people are watching this, and that stop over time gets bent and turns into a ramp, that's because of repeated use.
Yes.
If that stop breaks or that fallover post wasn't installed or doesn't prevent the gate falling at a 45-degree angle.
Yeah.
Those are the type of things that I just think you all are going to know as a professional that a church facility maintenance person's not going to recognize, or a school maintenance person isn't going to know. That's why it's so valuable to have experts, y'all, in your communities addressing that. Churches, parks, schools.
Absolutely. Well, and that's the thing is these building and grounds folks, they don't know what they don't know. Right.
Right.
And these are people that are probably stretched thin as it is. I mean, they're like every other employer, right?
Absolutely.
It's stretched thin. So we need to make it something where we say, this is what you look for. This is what you look for. It's as easy as providing slides of good gate, bad gate, good fall over, no fall over. This is what you need to look for, right? Here's the top 5 things, because I think the most recent incident very well could have been avoided had there been at least at a base level an inspection procedure, right? An inspection process.
So the latest news that I've seen on that is so here's what's tragic about both the Quanbeck story in California and this story in Arizona. Here's the latest that I know, and information is still coming out coming out about this. But there was a maintenance request that went in on that gate in Arizona.
Oh.
About 10 days before the accident, there was a maintenance request that whoever filled out the maintenance request said, "Oh, I need some welding on the back gate, on the gate near the kitchen." And I think because people can recognize that they need help with a problem, but they don't either have the technical or the knowledge on how to solve it.
Yeah.
That's the tragedy. So when that gate fell in California, in the Quanbeck case, that gate had fallen a month before. And so when you start to see this pattern of people recognizing that there's a problem, and this is to your point about either they don't know what they don't know, or they don't have the resources to fix that. That's why you all need to be in contact. You as the fence professional, the fence expert, need to be connected to those people. So
yeah.
And I think the key message here that I'd like people to understand is that the industry is taking action on this, and we are coming together on this, and we are holding the baton now that started 20 years ago, 23 years ago, and we are going to elevate it to a point where when something happens to a gate on a facility, they're calling you as the professional.
Absolutely.
It's that sophisticated. Just like you would if a pipe in the middle of winter burst, you wouldn't sit there and try to fix it yourself. You'd call somebody to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
We want people to think, AFA wants people to think of you as the fence professional like they would think of if a pipe burst in the middle of winter.
Yep. Or the lights went out.
Or the lights, it's one thing to go flip the breaker box. There's a whole nother thing if the transformer in your front yard just exploded. There's a whole nother, let's call somebody who actually knows how to fix this fried breaker panel.
Yeah, your wall outlet starts smoking. You don't start troubleshooting that yourself.
That's right. Call an electrician. That's when we talk about professionalism, it's really hard for people to define, but it's not hard to describe. Professionalism is when there's a problem, they call an expert.
Yep. Do the right thing because it's the right thing.
Absolutely.
Hey, We've got a question here, a general AFA question. So saying, just wondering if we aren't, so if they aren't an AFA member now, if they join for the 350, is that good? Oh, is that good through 2024?
Yeah. So all memberships are done on an annual basis, not on a calendar basis.
Yeah. So your renewal. So if you join today, being the 16th, I think your membership would renew the 16th of next December.
Yeah. The best deal, quite honestly, look at me moving into sales mode. The best deal is to get your membership as you're registering for FenceTech.
There you go. Get a twofer. Absolutely. Let's just wrap up. So we're over an hour, so we'll start wrapping up now. I want to
let's
shout out to a few people. Justin says, awesome information as always. Community building and awareness is key. Also building trust and integrity. We stand behind our work. We'll make it right.
Absolutely.
Very well said.
So I will hear one of the pushbacks here, and I get it. One of the pushbacks is, that's not my gate. I didn't install that gate.
Sure.
People are so hesitant to touch a gate that they didn't do, and I get it.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, I think that part of that professionalism is informing that customer of what it'll do to make that gate right.
Yeah.
They own the gate.
Sure.
But if you walk up there and it doesn't have fallover protection, and it doesn't have, if it's a swing gate and it doesn't have a secondary way of preventing that gate from falling, and it doesn't meet standard, in other words, I think that the accountable or responsible thing to do is to inform that gate owner of what it'll take to make that gate safe.
Yep. Absolutely. Here's some resources for you to review. I mean, it's not just me saying this. I'm going to give you resources to say these are the steps that need to be taken. But yeah, this is how this gate can be made safe. Because I know there are owners out there that are absolutely cost conscious, right? But I believe if you put resources in front of them, make them aware of the dangers, right, and the possible repercussions. Again, most everyone's a parent, right? So I think they can put themselves in that perspective of saying, if it's your kid who's climbing on this gate, I don't think we're quibbling over a couple $100 or whatever is the hesitation here. I think it just gets done. So I think it might be an easier conversation than some are imagining it would be.
I think you're right, Joe. And I've had these discussions with Eric Quambeck, and I'm of the mind of there's lots of reasons why people might. There's lots of things that may move people. They may move industry people or your customers. They may be moved by these tragic stories, an emotional movement. They may be moved by the legal argument. Hey, you don't want the liability of having an unsafe gate on your. They may be moved by the insurance argument. Hey, you're going to save money on your insurance if you have a safe gate. They may be moved by just doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do. Kind of a leadership approach. Yeah. And when I'm talking to Eric Quambeck and the Quambeck family, it's almost like I don't care. Like, I don't care what moves people. Like, they could be all of those things. It could be one of those things. Just take action. And that's what I'm so proud, because our industry now is acting, and I love it. And again, it's tragic that we're moving this, and it's not taking away from the pain that's felt by those families, but quite honestly, just take action and help make this a reality.
Absolutely. We have to keep pushing forward. Josh Glover, speaking of somebody that's passionate about gate safety, I think Josh has really picked up the torch in the very beginning. So
he is.
Josh, I appreciate you tuning in.
Me too, Josh.
Facebook user says, great podcast. Thank you, Facebook user.
Thanks, Facebook user.
Yeah, guys, I think this was a great discussion. If interested in attending FenceTech to continue these conversations, we've got the registration link in the chat. Also, to learn more about the educational series, we've got that as well. If you can if it is at all possible, you need to seriously consider going. It is an event that we love going to, that I feel like I always walk away with a little bit more knowledge than I showed up with, which is in a lot of cases invaluable.
Well, we appreciate you kind of opening the platform up for us to have an in-depth conversation about it. I agree. I'll even be more emphatic about it, Joe. You said if you can make the time. I'm suggesting that if you write down the 4 problems that you need solved in your business, and think about what would it mean to me, what would it mean to my business to have these 4 or 5 problems solved? And then ask yourself the question, can you afford missing FenceTech this year?
Fair point. Absolutely.
Plus, this is going to be a whole bunch of fun.
Yeah. I mean, there's both sides of that coin. It is going to be incredibly valuable, but it's also going to be a lot of fun at the same time. So what a combination.
Yep.
Michael,
Joe, thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to be with you always. but to be with you to talk about this important stuff, I appreciate it.
I appreciate you being so giving of your time. I know mid-morning Saturday is not the most ideal time for these conversations, so I appreciate you being open to coming on. Absolutely.
Well, I appreciate it. And sure enough, we always go longer than we expect.
That's always the way. That's always the way.
All right. Thanks, Joe.
You're very welcome. I appreciate you guys watching. As always, no live next week as we prepare for the holiday coming up. So this will be the last broadcast of the year. No, we have one right before the first, right? Yeah, I think so. So not the last of the year, second last of the year. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Again, if you're listening to the podcast, thanks for making it to the end. And tune in live next time by searching Joe Everest on pretty much any of the social media platforms. We'd love to have you be part of the conversation next time. Guys, for now, Joe Everest, the fence expert, reminding you that good fences make good neighbors, and I'll see you next time.